Okay, so our next speaker is Maryna. Maryna works with Cerebrum DAO. Cerebrum DAO has just closed a $1 million raise, and they are the latest BioDAO to join BioXYZ. So yeah, we're really, really excited about what they're going to do over the next couple of months. Maryna is a psychiatrist and a neuroscientist. She spent 10 years working on drug target identification and biomarkers, so is uniquely experienced with the issues of translational science. And yeah, she's a steward of Cerebrum DAO. So yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Maryna.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we were actually aiming to bring a researcher with whom we're working at the Cerebrum DAO, but last minute there were some changes, passport issues, and basically Anne from the UK could not join us. So let me guide you through my personal translational journey that I had in the academia before I joined Cerebrum DAO. I've had quite a lot of ups and downs there. Before I start, I wanted to ask how many of you did PhDs in Germany? A couple, good. Then maybe I tell something new to the rest of the cohort. Yeah, so basically I started as a medical doctor. I was studying in Ukraine and started my journey as a psychiatrist treating dementia patients. And like after over, I don't know, 8 to 10 years of education, I realized that I cannot help my patients. So I had to invest my brain somewhere better. And back then I was thinking, okay, that's probably research. Let me go and find new drugs for Alzheimer's. That brought me to Austria, to the Medical University of Vienna, where I worked on drug target identification. And then after some supervision issues, so that was my first PhD attempt, I decided to go for another PhD, and then I joined Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, where I worked on biomarkers and neuroimaging for depression and dementia. So basically what I was surprised in the beginning, I was told by one of my supervisors that you are going to discover the drug for Alzheimer's and you are going to be rich. And I'm like, okay, really? Let's see. We screened for drugs, but we actually had very little understanding of what's going to happen if we even find something. So there was never really an understanding of what is the whole process, what's going on, and what are the expectations to be. So back then, basically almost none of the PhD programs were translational, and majority of them are still not. So academics are taught to basically do science and, I don't know, wait for someone else to translate their findings. So there was no translational training. Very often what I observed in Max Planck, there was very little connection to clinics and patients. So we are basically discovering some solutions for problems which might not even exist. Yeah, and what I also heard very often in academia, although that didn't touch me directly, very often PhD students are not able to select their topics at all. They just come and work on the topics on professors, basically developing the ideas of someone else. So this young generation, which has an option to bring some new blood, actually cannot really develop there. In my case, I had an option, but I have to say I was not knowledgeable enough to spend enough time to identify a very good topic. Yeah. So after the PhD, I was scouted for the entrepreneurship program, where I basically entered another world, which was the Entrepreneur First VC program, bringing 50 people from different backgrounds in one room and trying to create startups. What was very different from traditional academia is that they actually forced us to talk to patients and to clinicians that we have never done before, and that was very, very intense. That's something which is better in the traditional academia, but probably most of you know that in the VC world, they are just expecting to disrupt everything, build unicorns, you have to go fast. They were asking how can we speed up clinical trials, and that was another topic there. Very different world. Unfortunately, very few biotech outcomes from our cohort. Our Berlin cohort was meant to be medtech and biotech focused. very few outcomes followed. And one of the reasons was that the investor network and all the training that they were suggesting was actually not medtech focused. It was just a general advice, which doesn't always work in the biotech and medicine. Yeah. So after this program, we continued developing our startup idea. The program actually wanted me to take my PhD findings and translate them into the product, which should have been the treatment response prediction in depression. And one of the interesting things which occurred very often, we had to talk to doctors and collect letters of intent. And all of the doctors told me, oh, really, you want to develop this tool? Just come to me when you develop it. So we listed. University A said, come to me when you develop it. University B said, come to me. And kind of some wrote the letters of intent. And those were only the people who were working specifically in this topic who actually wanted to co-develop something. So it's very important to find key opinion leaders who are actually interested in this. So we did not go for the VC funding. Actually, my team was not funded. But we decided to continue and worked until the COVID on funding that project with the treatment response prediction in depression. And the first thing which traditional academic community suggested was applying for exist funding. Does anyone know about the exist funds in Germany? Okay, a couple as well. That's better. Even more. So this is basically one of the ministry fundings. And I think if German researchers come to DAOs to ask for funding, this will be one of the first they might have tried already. There are two programs. One is designed for smaller teams, and they provide funding for 1 year in a stipend. And one is more competitive. They provide funding for 3 years for so-called research transfer, and it's very competitive, but also much higher funding. Yeah, we wrote an application to the Forschungstransfer. Not Forschungstransfer, the stipend, and one of the challenges for me was, because I'm not German speaking, we had to write it in German. So we wrote it in English. We came to the technology transfer office, and we had to rewrite it from scratch. Basically, because the expectations are very clear for technology transfer offices. And like you just have to be in the network in order to understand how to apply there. We wrote the application, sent it to preliminary assessment, then have shown it to another professor. He told, no, it's too early, like go back. So we didn't even submit that one. Yeah. Basically, from those teams who got funding, and I know they continued, basically they are getting stipends, but they are still working mostly on their own. They're basically not getting much support from the program themselves. Then there was another one. Another TTO told me, you go for Go Bio program. That's the one that fits you better. So we wrote again an application in English, again rewrote it in German, applied and waited, and 6 months have passed, and we've got rejected. So another attempt, Go Bio, is focused on the developing biotechnologies. To be honest, what I didn't know that I can ask for feedback, and I didn't ask, and I didn't get it early on, although I could have. So another attempt, another failed application. What is interesting and what a lot of German startups do is applying for local funding. So those of you who are in Berlin, they probably applied for Gründerbonus. There is, in my city, there is the Sächsische Aufbaubank. They have a lot of programs. You often have to know people to know that those programs exist. You also have to know people at TTOs who will help you to write the application, because those are, again, very Germany specific. But there are also hurdles, and several times. So once we've got funded in collaboration with the company, and they basically funded only 80%. So for the company it was all right, but for the academic partners, basically there were months and months of discussions. Where do we get another 40,000 euros to co-fund the project? And for one of the programs where I aimed to apply, basically this case where they did not fund 100%, stopped my institute. So basically they told me not to apply for it because of this in this case that was 10,000 K. Yeah. I had some experience with TTOs, and I think that in German universities they have quite some power. So there are small networks. The number of startups is usually also small, but they are very knowledgeable about existing programs. If you find the right person for you, they are usually very helpful. They are helping to rewrite those grants and guide you through all the funding. What is a little bit bad, I think, for translation is that there is an opinion that you have to incubate your project in university as long as possible. So sometimes those projects are living as university startups for 6, 8, 10 years. And in the end, no investor wants to invest in them anymore. Yeah. And there is a recent trend in Germany as well, which is creating in-house incubation programs. So German academic societies, research societies, were heavily criticized by the public that they are investing a lot of money in basic research, but nothing comes out. So there is this pressure, and under the pressure, they started to move faster. The Fraunhofer is traditionally a translational research society. They have created an incubation programs already some time ago. And Max Planck, where I was doing my research all these years, have created the Maximize program, which is kind of a copy of Fraunhofer. And there they fund you for the first 6 months with 50K grant, and for the next year with around 200K grant. Yeah, I think what all researchers who want to do their translational science experience is that there are certain deadlines, I don't know, once or twice a year, depending on the programs. And basically you apply and wait, apply and wait, wait. And occasionally you get funded. So our project was funded by Maximize. We went through the first phase, received some comments. The jury was not from our field. They gave some comments in the first phase, and in the end, they came with completely different questions. So the project was not funded, and we didn't go to the second phase. What I think is really missing in all these programs is that they give you basic, first of all, the jury is not coming from your field, so it's very general. Then they give you basic entrepreneurship training, but nobody is actually connecting you to the network that you actually need as a researcher. And this is what DeSci can come with. Yeah, so we are independent as scientists. We are spending most of the time applying, and we have to somehow also progress on our projects along those applications. So it's quite challenging. Okay, so one slide is missing. Nevertheless, I wanted to also, let me go back a bit. It's not touchscreen. Oh, okay. Yeah. Before I go to some suggestions that DeSci, well, like what DeSci could do better, I also wanted to speak a little bit about the talent leakage from academia. So it's not only projects, but also the talents. Our PhD network in Max Planck Society has conducted a survey which showed that it's not that the best people are staying in academia. It's always a combination of, I don't know, a good lab, successful project, so on. But sometimes people who just have some social duties, they actually decide to leave. And at the same time, industry is paying better, offers social security, better work-life balance. So lots of people are actually at a high stress, and they rarely feel supported by those funding institutions. And with this, I just want to go to the final slide, and I was thinking what we as DeSci could do better. So first, I think it corresponds a lot to what Nucleate was talking about, is could we maybe reinvent the PhD programs? Could we, from the very beginning, focus on translation and on trying to understand what is actually needed and how it can be developed for the clinics, for the patients, or for any other applications that you're working on? Second, which was there were ups and downs in this space about the expert network who are reviewing projects and who are also helping to find the right solution. Those we are currently connecting through the Cerebrum DAO in our case, but many others through your own DAOs. And something that is really missing in this academic funding, basically that so what we are doing now, we are aiming to provide feedback like by default after the application. And also, even if we do not fund the project at this point, basically we would like to stay in contact with researchers, help them to co-develop their ideas and maybe reapply in the future. All right. And I think that one of the messages that we discussed with Anne before we realized that she couldn't join, she told that it never takes one person to develop a successful project, neither in science nor in other areas. So in her recent observations, there were always the teams of three, she called them triumvirates, that actually combined different expertise to push one project to become successful. And I think that DeSci has actually the power exactly in this space where we are inviting people with very different expertise and helping basically to co-develop projects that would not be developed otherwise. Thank you.